Welcome to REST, which stands for Resiliency and Empowerment Seminar today. I am your host, Susan Gans, founder and strategic advisor with Gans Strategic Solutions, where we work with businesses and leaders at the intersection of business and psychology. REST is the show that I put together to focus on the leaders of small, mid-sized businesses, heads of nonprofits, and other community leaders to shine a light on their organizations and their missions, as well as to hear the journeys of these leaders and how they're being resilient today. I am so delighted to be interviewing Jane Hanson today. Yay! A little bit about Jane. Jane is an award-winning, Emmy-Award-winning television journalist and coach, and she's spent over 30 years helping people communicate better. It's about having them resonate with every type of audience, particularly in today's fast-paced world where everybody has to be on their game 24/7. And she focuses on 3 core elements: what you say, how you say it, and how your body language keeps it all in sync. Her clients range from top tier leaders of corporations to scientists to restaurateurs to people in the pharmaceutical industry. She grew up on the prairies of rural Minnesota before coming to New York, and we'll hear more about that. She has won 9 Emmy Awards and has been recognized by so many peers and community organizations. And with that, it is such a pleasure to welcome Jane to our show today.
Hello, Susan. How are you? How are you coping in the midst of all of this?
Well, thank you for asking, Jane. It has been a roller coaster ride of sorts, but having good friends, family, virtually
Right.
surrounds it, and creating this show has shed a light on positivity during this time.
I think that's really good. I think we all need to have as much of that as we can find. Some days it's
Absolutely.
easier than others.
So I'd love to hear, Jane, how you've gone from the prairies to the metropolis. Can you bring us back to the early days of your career and how you got into journalism and focusing in on communication?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a little town called Canby, Minnesota. And the town slogan was "Be all you can be in Canby." But
That's awesome.
and it was a town of about 2,500 people, settled in very rural Minnesota. If you know Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls Wilder, that book and that series, well, my little hometown was very close, just a few miles away from the setting for that book, Walnut Grove. What's the name of the place? Anyway, I grew up in a very bucolic setting. Much of the town was related to me. My great grandparents and grandparents immigrated from Norway and settled there. And we didn't even have a street light in the town. There's a 4-way stop. But when I was a little girl growing up, my father was very much a reader, and he was really into news and that sort of thing. And I remember that from about the age of 4 on, he would read me stories from the newspaper, and then we'd talk about them. And I became extremely curious, and I thought, that is the life I want. I want to go all over the world and interview interesting people and hear their stories, because it's I'm very curious. And so I got a degree in broadcast journalism, and off I trotted, and actually came to New York when I was very young, in my young 20s. And I think the only reason I got hired by NBC, WNBC, was because I kept hanging up on the news director then. So, because I thought it was a joke. I couldn't believe he was calling me. I'm like, really? And then, so, the first time he called, he introduced himself, and I went, yeah, right, who is this? This is a joke. And I hung up, and then he called back, and I said, look, I don't know what's up here, but blah, blah, blah. So by the third time, he said, write down my name and number and call me back. And so, I did, thinking I would get something that, that wasn't the news director of WNBC on the line, and it was. And I hear, the assistant answer the phone, and she goes, Oh, she starts to laugh when I gave my name. She goes, nobody's ever hung up on him like that. And we've all been wondering if you were going to call back or not. So, and then he hired me. So it was great. It was great. It was a really super cool job at a super cool time in the world of journalism, in the world of broadcasting. Lots of exploration of new technologies. All the live stuff started then, which happens to be something I love doing. So this virtual stuff to me is just like, let me at it. So um, it was a great career and a really fun start. And, for a while I had a show called Jane's New York, and we shot all of the ins and outs to the piece from a building in Times Square. And so there would be me, larger than life in Times Square, and my family back in Minnesota would go, they'd be scratching their heads going, how did that happen? So it's been a whirlwind, and it's been wonderful.
What was the biggest adjustment you had to make coming to New York?
I think it was the size of the city. And my parents, because I was so young, were very worried about me, because back then New York was the big, bad, scary suburban town. But I thrived on it because everything was a new adventure. And as you know, in New York City is the place where every world leader comes through, every president. Um, you know, we know that song, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And
Yes.
so it's true. I mean, leaders from every possible walk of life exist in New York. So it really, whenever you need an expert, it wasn't just the local doctor. It was the guy who created the vaccine, or the woman who, wrote the thesis about how we're going to change education, or whatever it is. It was all here. So I have to say, it was amazing and wonderful. I never knew what I was going to do the next day either. So being a jack of all trades was good. So
how did you prepare for meeting with a world leader, or meeting with a top person from a company? Like, what did you do mentally, or what did you do to prepare?
well, I think you do what you do with any interview. You find as much background information as you can. You check out what possibly could be relevant in today's news. Why are you interviewing them? What's that all about? Um, and then I would just try to find unusual things about them that could bring me greater understanding of that person. So I would look at old clips of interviews from the past. I would read interviews from the past. And then I would just try to find a nugget of information that was really unusual. Like maybe they have a different kind of hobby, or maybe they were a world-class pianist at the age of 6 or something. And then try to bring something into the interview that really could help this person become relatable, and at the same time make it interesting, make the interview really sing. That was always my goal.
Got it. And is there any one particular interview that stands out for you?
Well, the one I keep citing, and in fact there's a picture of it back over here, is with um, the South African leader Desmond Tutu.
Oh,
And I was interviewing Desmond in a downtown, right by St. Luke's Church. And I think he was speaking at the UN. I can't remember. I think he was speaking at the UN. And I'm halfway through the interview, and people that are with him stop me. As reporters, you don't like being stopped, and we're on a time schedule. And I said, "Oh, come on, I'm almost done." And they go, "No, truly, you really want us to stop." So the reason they stopped me was because they just gotten word that he had won the Nobel Peace Prize. So
wow.
so now we go back to doing the interview, and tears are streaming down his face. And I just felt like, I even get chills now when I talk about it, because I felt like I was in the presence of such majesty, such an honorable person who fought so hard against apartheid in his country. And it was as if I was touching something that would change me forever, by the knowledge of what he accomplished, and what he had done for the world. It was really chilling is the word that I get that comes to mind. So that is one I will never forget. And it also made me realize that, and by the way, that interview played all over the world. And the funny part was, is I was wearing, this is so stupid, but I was wearing this really wacky, colorful flowered dress. And, and as people are showing this interview, I'm thinking, why did I wear that dress that day?
Well, talk about standing out, and you had this moment, right? Like you
Mhm,
were the one that was there when he
mhm,
got that news.
mhm.
That's so, um,
Overwhelming.
yes.
It also taught me that maybe when somebody tries to stop an interview, I should listen.
It was a great reason to stop.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how do
But,
you have to take that into your work with clients and getting messages across? What are you finding in particular that your clients need now?
um, so one of the things that is really interesting to me is my work as a broadcaster, where we had to take mountains of information and squeeze them down into a very short piece. We'd probably do a 20-minute interview and we'd have to make a minute and a half story out of it. And what I discovered is I learned very quickly on what the important messages were and how succinctly and with what clarity they had to be given. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things I've taken away from my broadcast and my journalism world to help clients learn how to speak better. Because their messaging, frequently they'll be all over the place. They'll have 9 different messages and nobody can listen to all of those. So they have to have one clear message and then they have to prove it. And so I think that's the hardest thing sometimes. It's like people can't see the forest for the trees. If you're deeply involved in the launch of a new product for a company, you know every aspect of that product. And and you could talk about it for an hour and a half, but you don't get that much time. So no matter what you're doing, a presentation, a an interview, doing a video, whatever it is you're doing, you don't have that much time. Time is of the element. So we need to really make sure that that message is succinct and truly clear. And that's what we have to start with. And then, you know, you have to think about who am I saying it to? Because even if you've got one basic message, you're
Yes.
speaking to different groups of people. So those groups of people have to be addressed. Are they, you know, what's their gender? What are their belief system? What what's their geography? Because there's a lot of different factors that will play into how somebody's going to receive a message. And you just want to be relatable. So to become relatable, you have to learn who your audience is. And then what are you going to say to them that's going to get them to sit up and go, ah, I got that. So that part's really important.
It's such a gift to be able to share with other people, because you're right, people really know their, call it their subject matter, but when it comes to getting it across in a way that it'll be received is a different aspect that
Right.
not everybody thinks of.
And the other thing that, you know, I have one of my favorite quotes that I use in my coaching comes from Maya Angelou. And it says, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And so we have to take all of that into every single one of our moments of communication. And that's really important to do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. That's also one of my favorite quotes that resonates with me. So that brings me to empowerment, really, because what you're doing is empowering others. So can you speak more about that?
Well, I think that in today's world, um, there's so many distractions, and there's always also so many ways of making us feel like we're not empowered. So you have to start with inside yourself, and you have to start with your own ability and your own confidence in who and what you are and what you're doing. So once you can achieve that, and a lot of times, really what I'm doing for people is I'm helping them gain confidence. I'm helping them clear up their messages. I'm helping them get their body language down in a way that relates. Body language is really important because it's truly innate. You know, man communicated only through their bodies for most of the time we've been walking Earth. We've only had a spoken language for 160,000 years. And so we use our bodies. And I mean, just do this little experiment, everybody. Turn off the sound on your television set, and you're still going to get the story about what's going on. in a drama or something, you'll still figure it out because you can tell by the way people are interacting and the way the body movement is there. And so for me, if I can get people to sync up, it will empower them. When you feel good about what you're saying and how you're delivering it, when you feel good, when you know you're good, you are empowered. And it's really simple to me, but it's oh so useful.
Absolutely. It's great insights that you just gave about the power of body language, because there have been several studies, right, that it's the visual and then the tone of what you're saying that account for the majority of communication, and only a little bit of the words, and everybody concentrates so much on the words and not on the other pieces of it. So
Well, don't get that wrong, because you can't, it doesn't matter how you say something if you don't have anything to say. So
yeah,
the messages are really important, but once the message is clear, then it's all about the delivery. And to deliver it well it can be a real gift, but I guarantee you anybody can do it. They can, I promise you. They need to practice, and they need to think about it, and they need to be clear, and they need to hire me.
and that's why we're highlighting you today, so people know about uh, the things that they don't know about communication, and um, how important it is to get your message across clearly and powerfully.
Mhm.
Which brings me to a point about resilience. Is today we were really learning about resiliency. So I'd love to hear your perspective on being resilient.
Well, being resilient sometimes I think is nothing more than putting one foot in front of the other. But I reinvented myself when I left television and began this coaching business. And I still do some TV, and I still do some, I do a lot of videos with people and that kind of thing. So the TV part and the broadcast part is still kind of there, but in a small fashion. But I think we are constantly reinventing ourselves. Life is all about change. So we change a little bit of us almost every day. And as we change and evolve, that is resilience. That is saying, I'm doing it this way right now, but maybe I need to go a little bit more down this road or that road, or to be more effective, more successful, and happier. And so I would love to think about resilience as being somebody having the ability to go, the way I'm doing this job right now isn't quite cutting it, and I need to make some changes, and they could be really small changes that will bring a whole new life. And there is nothing like the present when we're all have had to hit the reset button. I mean, we're working in ways we've never worked before, and who knows how much longer it's going to last like this. I think it may last for some time for a lot of us, and it's important for us to keep on plugging, just keep on saying, I can get through this. Let me figure out how I can do a Zoom a little bit better. Let me think about how I can put my written word out there better, how I can really get along with other people. Well, I have to still observe all the rules that we have in place to protect us. I mean, it's a tough time for a lot of people, but you gotta move forward. That's what's important.
I think that people can take a lot just from those one small change, one foot in front of the other, keep forward momentum,
Mhm.
and that'll help you in getting through these challenging times. So what is one thing that you would like people to take away from our conversation today?
That they can do it. Literally, you can do anything if you put your mind to it and your heart and your soul, and that it all begins with you. Nobody else is in charge of you, and nobody else can do for you what you can. So there's no time like now to really do some self-reflection and think about, how can I be better at all aspects of my life, my family, my friends, my community, my work, and and how can I do it better? And that's, I think, the bottom line of everything.
I love that holistic view of how can we be better. It's within ourselves, and how can we be better in all different aspects of our lives and take this pause to reflect. So before we go, Jane, how can people find you? Because we do want them to find you.
Well, they can go to my website, which is Jane Hanson, HANSON.com, or they can email me, and the email is jane@janehanson.com. And I promise you that the next time we gather, I shall hopefully have been to a hairdresser.
You and me both. But once
You didn't
again,
know I had such curly hair, did you?
we learn all sorts of things, right?
We do. It's being resilient and being brave enough to say, oh, what the heck. It
And
is what
it's
it is.
vulnerability too. This is
Yeah,
it's real, right? And we don't have to be perfect.
right.
It's just about getting our messages across and connecting with one another.
Absolutely. You do that, you'll be a rock star.
And once again, that's janehanson.com, and it's Jane at janehanson.com. And to our audience, before we go today, I want to do a special dedication in celebration of A Life Well Lived by Lois Cooper, who is a diversity and inclusion colleague. Lois was just such a bright light in advocating for inclusion of all different people. She's very bubbly. I saw her on a recent webinar, and she touched me with how vibrant she was and her laugh. And I will remember her big smile and her laugh and the impact that she has had. And to our audience, we hope that you enjoyed this conversation today and look forward to the next conversation. Until then, be safe, stay connected, and have your one clear message.
That's it. Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate your time. It's an awful lot of fun to talk with you. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Jane.
Bye-bye.